just to ensure that we cover everyone, what is ascension then?
Yeah. Ascension is the conscious participation in our own evolution, because we're either ascending or descending, meaning we're either evolving or devolving. And we see that clear as day in our world. We have this huge, chasm between people who are becoming conscious, are moving forward in that direction to the degree and rate that people are moving in the completely opposite direction. So, and don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be like we're all in this together. I would love for everybody to move in the direction of consciousness, because that would mean there would be less suffering in the world. But the truth of the matter, the thing that I can't override reality, is that people are just as much headed to the opposite end of that consciousness spectrum as people are headed towards the, conscious end of that spectrum. And so with that, we have really ascension being the choice to go with that process of expanding our consciousness and becoming more conscious, because that's the evolutionary process. But when we go, hey, I'm going to participate in this, when we're making that conscious decision, that whole storyline from that point on that plays out is called ascension.
And then I guess once you make that decision, that's when everything begins to shift.
Yeah.
How would you then, or what, I'd love to know your thoughts on it then, if speaking of ascension and of, I guess, the expansion of consciousness, in singular or collectively, then what is the soul's purpose? How would you then describe the soul and its purpose in that? Because that, again, that is, I guess, something that has you have many different interpretations, beliefs, and forms from around that.
The soul is our eternal nature. So I always like to call the soul the daredevil in our energy field. The soul's the daredevil. Better yet, the soul is Houdini. The soul's like, you want me to chain myself all up and then throw me in the water and then I can't breathe, and then you want to see if I can get out of it. That's the soul. So the soul's the one going, and for my next trick, I will go into Australia and then, go bring light into very dim aspects of that reality that need it. So the soul is a daredevil, and then the conscious mind is the one that can participate consciously in the ride or suffer. Because the soul's the one behind the wheel.
I love that analogy. Then why is it such a daredevil? Like, what does it get out of it? You know?
The soul's like an celestial junkie. The soul gets out of it learning more about itself, but also it's eternal. So when you're eternal, you don't have the same perception as when, like when you're eternal, it's hard to cry about certain things because you won't be able to experience grief. You won't be able to experience that, when a loved one dies. And so the soul gets out of it the richest experiences ever, because it gets to stop its own magic. Well, it creates through its magic, but it gets to stop its own perception so that it can play a character and have the richness of that spectrum of emotion and have that spectrum of perception and have that, I was
Mm-hmm.
tripping out just the other day at the fact that I got this insight that in a past life I was like some sort of levitating Eastern master. I started going, whoa. But I see why I would want to be this person now from the US who like just I wanted to do film at one point. Like I Um, I just have a lot of experiences that are so different from some of the information I get. And I see how, from my soul's perspective, I'm like, I would love nothing more to have a completely different experience than something that I had in this or that. And so the soul gets out of it everything. The soul wins.
Yeah. You've triggered a couple of questions here. The first one is then with with the soul being a daredevil and wanting these experiences, was there a moment in your life then where you felt that you had to put yourself out there more, or nervous too, or was worried about it? Like so that conflict within ourselves. I know I certainly was when like I was telling you, I sold my company and I'm like, I'm going to do what? But there was this just huge pull that I couldn't deny. And like you said, when done with integrity and moving forward, things just opened up in ways I can't even describe, but it was terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. Remember how I was talking about how, like, even though I didn't understand that I walked a line in my path, I was. Um,
Hmm.
the groups or the people or the information that I was always drawn to made it to where once I saw, whether it was documentaries, whatever it was, once I got an external permission slip that people were sharing intense content, intense meaning fringe or even what we would consider conspiracy. That was soul medicine because I've always been intense, but I felt like I never got the mission. So imagine you're just ready for something and
Right.
everyone's acting normal in front of you and you're just like, okay, this is not matching up. You'll start thinking you're mentally ill. You'll start being depressed. You'll start being anxious, all because you're a race car ready to go. And so once I started seeing in my external reality that there was something wrong with reality and that we're in a matrix, I was that was very confirming. And my warrior aspect instantly got activated. So with that instant activation, I started drawing very strict and strong lines in the sand, being that person, that person, if you're at a family gathering or if you're with your group of friends or if you start being that person, really shoving reality down people's throats. And so having that level, I almost call that now like the practice grounds because continuously strengthening that threshold for conflict, really, that's what it was. I didn't know I was
Mm.
doing it at the time. I was just super passionate. But now I know that even that served a massive purpose because now I have the effortlessness of being the channel I need to. I can say something and not have it come through and need to go through this filter and that, all because getting all of that conflict out of my system. Like, I want to go back in time and make all the people I fought with online pay me because they were getting so much of my energy. And I'm like, I would not ever fight with like, but at that
Mhm.
time, it was just my warrior aspect was being exercised. And that aspect really needed to have its day, have its dawn, so that now, even if I'm just talking about rainbows, it doesn't matter what I'm talking about. It's not going through a bunch of filters.
Yeah. No, it's important, and I love what you're sharing because it's so easy to put limitations upon ourselves to allow us to fit in, to be a certain way because we're worried about upsetting or how others are going to respond in these moments. And as you start to put yourself out there in more and more people, obviously it can feel, the perception could be feeling that the pressure is greater, and how we take that on board.